Buenos dias, internet bikers. This is gonna be a video about Harley Davidson, but despite what the thumbnail might make you think, I am not going to put down on Harley. I'm not gonna hate on Harley. So just hold your horses and hear me out a little bit before before you put a thumbs down on this video, because like I said, this is the disclaimer. I like Harley. Harley Davidson makes awesome motorcycles. It's a great brand, it's a great company, and I really enjoy the products that they put out. So this is not going to be about things that Harley has done wrong. Not necessarily. This is going to be a video about what Harley hasn't done. It's not bad or worse, it's just they haven't done this. And it is basically, I'm going to explain why Harley Davidson is so popular in a very select number of countries, and it is a lot less popular than you may think in basically the rest of the world. So first off, where is Harley popular? Harley is the most famous motorcycle brand in the US and a few of the more culturally aligned countries to the US. So that's basically Canada, Australia, New Zealand, places like that, you know, like former British colonies, places where English is the main language, places where, yeah, just because of familiarity, Harley Davidson had it easier to just expand over there. But outside of the, let's say, Anglo world, outside of US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and to some extent the UK, Harley Davidson is practically a niche player everywhere else. And that's what this video is about. So I actually went a little bit into ChatGPT. And you know, ChatGPT is really just an easier way of searching the web. It's like you don't have to search, and you don't have to make decisions on which websites you're going to use or not. It's just, it does the search for you and it gives you the answer for you. That's basically what ChatGPT is. But that also means that it's not 100% accurate. It just spits out whatever it is that it finds on the web. So I asked it, where was Harley Davidson the most popular, and those are the countries that it came out with. It came out with, of course, the US, and then it came out with Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and to some extent the UK and Germany. That was another one. And that's funny, but well, it's not funny, but it is interesting, and we'll get into that later. So I just wanted to highlight that those are the places where Harley Davidson is popular. If you disagree, please let me know in the comments. If there's any other country where Harley Davidson is huge, also let me know. This whole video is an open discussion. I'm just giving my point of view of where Harley is popular and where it is not. And I'm going to be a little bit more into detail into where it is not popular and why. So my experience as a person, right? Not as a biker, but as a regular old human being before I actually got into motorcycles, was I grew up in two countries, which were Colombia in Latin America, of course, and the US. So those are the two countries I grew up in. But when I grew up, I never saw a motorcycle in the US. I lived in New York, and I was a kid, so I wasn't really aware of motorcycles. In Colombia, I was. And in Colombia, and I suspect in the rest of Latin America, when you talk about motorcycles, especially back in the 80s when I was growing up, all the good motorcycles, or the motorcycles that people were you know, dreaming of, they were Japanese motorcycles. Everyone in Colombia back in the day, they wanted a Yamaha, a Kawasaki, or that was basically it, or a Honda, I guess. And those were the popular brands. That's what everyone was hoping to get at some point. Harley Davidson didn't exist. I mean, it existed, and I'm pretty sure more well-off people would know about it and maybe even buy some. I know that there were some. There's history about that. But they were not common knowledge. They were not what everyone was looking for. My guess is, this is my perception from Latin America. my perception, and I'm guessing that this is going to be the same in every other third world country out there. It's like in Africa, in Asia, all over Asia, maybe except the Middle East, Harley Davidson does not exist as a viable option. It exists as something that you may have seen in a movie or two, and that's basically it. Or maybe in a specialized magazine, if you were so inclined to find one. And I'm talking the 80s, 90s, pre-internet, okay? So Harley Davidson never put the effort into those parts of the world to become a popular brand. And it made sense because the bikes that they have always built were not really meant for rough roads. And so that's why it made no sense for them to do that. What they did do was they tried to get into the European and Japanese markets. And but again, Europe and Japan have their own brands. So Harley Davidson was never a major player. It never has been a major player in Europe, and this is now my experience as an adult. I've lived as an adult in both Italy and Spain. In neither one of these two countries is Harley Davidson a major player. So when I went to ChatGPT and I asked it, okay, where else is Harley Davidson important? And Harley Davidson said, and ChatGPT said, well, Harley Davidson is a major player in the heavyweight motorcycle segment in France, Germany, and the UK. And then I asked, okay, but what does heavyweight motorcycle mean for you? And he said, well, according to some industry standard, I don't remember which one it was, a heavyweight motorcycle is something that has over 600 cc's and weighs over 200 pounds. All right, okay, so that kind of cancels out more than half of the motorcycle market in Europe, because most motorcycles sold here are small displacement scooters or naked bikes. So if you're taking out more than half of the motorcycle market, then yeah, Harley Davidson is a major player, not even the leader, but just a somewhat major player in Germany, UK, and France. The reason is that in all those countries, plus every other country in Europe, there is one major player. There is one brand that stands tall above all other brands, and that brand is BMW. So if you live in the States and you've only lived in the States, think of BMW in Europe the same way you think about Harley Davidson in the States. BMW is the brand. That is what everyone aspires to in Europe. And some people might say that's not true, but yeah, it kind of is. It's the big brand, but there are some nuances to it, right? The US is just one big country, and you may have a lot of states and subcultures, I would guess, but everyone considers Harley Davidson the local brand, and now Indian, but let's not talk about that. Let's talk about Harley. So it's easy for Harley to it's easy for everyone in the States to identify with Harley and buy Harley because that's the local brand. So the nuance in Europe is that BMW is not the local brand for most of Europe. I mean, in many countries, it's the closest thing you have to a local brand, but it is not a local brand. And in other countries, there are other local brands that are just as premium and that also have their own share of the market. And those brands are basically Ducati in Italy and Triumph in the UK. I guess you could say KTM, but I don't really have enough information about the Austrian market. Plus, it's small compared to the rest. The whole point is that Harley Davidson does not have anywhere near the brand awareness or the brand recognition that BMW has in Europe. And in these countries where ChatGPT told me that Harley Davidson is a major player, it's only a major player in the sense that it is not terribly behind BMW, but it's still behind not just BMW, but also Honda and Yamaha. And if it's in Italy, it's also behind Ducati. And if it's in the UK, it's also behind Triumph. All right, and yeah, so I thought that was interesting. I thought it's an interesting topic of conversation. Like I said, I'm not talking bad about Harley. They've made their business decisions to focus on more US and US-like countries, and that's fine. That's a great business decision because it has worked for them. But what do you guys think about the whole situation about Harley not being popular at all in many countries around the world? Like in Spain, where I live, over here, Harley Davidson, in Spain and Italy, for instance, which are the two countries that I've lived in, Harley Davidson doesn't even reach 2% of the market share when it's like 30 or 40% in the US. It's not even in the top 10 brands in Spain and Italy. If you go out in a bike ride, or if you go into a biker hangout, you are going to see maybe 20 bikes, 20 Japanese bikes, a bunch of BMWs, a few Triumphs, before you actually see a Harley Davidson. And I wanted to bring that up because I don't know how many people that actually live in the US and these and these other countries where Harley Davidson has focused itself in. If you ever thought that Harley wasn't popular in other places, like, are you surprised? Does this make sense to you? Did you never expect it at all? Just let me know in the comments. Did you think, or did you even contemplate Harley Davidson not being the most popular brand in the world? Because it's not. Honda is. That's it. In fact, in Italy, they have so many local brands that, of course, before anyone thinks about, well, not anyone, but, you know, before most people think about buying a Harley Davidson, they will look at Ducatis, Moto Guzzi's, Aprilias, and even BMWs, of course, before they look at a Harley. In Spain, the most popular brands are BMW, of course, and then Yamaha, Honda, and Kawasaki. Pretty even, in fact. It's curious because they're very even in popularity. Each one has like a star motorcycle that sells pretty well. And so, but Harley Davidson doesn't. Like, Harley Davidson's only a niche player. This is basically all I wanted to bring up as a discussion point, because I wanted to hear about two things. One, how true does this ring in your country? I mean, where are you from? Is Harley popular in your country? And what's more popular than Harley? And also, if you live in basically Harley country, are you surprised at this? Are you surprised that Harley is not popular at all in most of the world? That Harley is, I guess, as popular in most of the world as something like Moto Guzzi is in the US. It's like a novelty. It's like, oh, look, a Harley. Never seen one before, or hadn't seen one in 2 years. That's what Harley Davidson is like in many countries. And I don't know if you guys knew about that. I wanted to bring that, as like I said in my very first video, which I don't know if you've seen, but like I said in my very first video, what I wanted to bring as a slightly different perspective from the rest of the moto vlogs out there, because we all need to have something that makes us different in order to stand out, is that, yeah, I wanted to bring these different perspectives from other areas of the world. So hopefully it makes sense. Hopefully this chat was interesting, and I brought some good talking points. And of course, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any of the notifications. Hasta luego.